Make it plain.
Make it plain.
M.I.P.
With Masamela Matfumo.
Mark Thompson.
Make it plain.
Get woke.
God bless you. Get woke. Folks, MIP is now COVID-free, meaning free to all subscribers as we navigate this pandemic. We're thinking about everyone, and we've got to get through this together. So for a limited time, no fee to subscribe to Make It Plain on your favorite podcast app. Of course, it's Thursday. You know what that means. He really needs no introduction. He's been with us every Thursday for a decade. Decade.
We're getting old, Mark.
We've aged together on this show. But it's a lot of fun. And we talk about all things political. I know all of you enjoy it as well. So he's back with us for DailyKos, the founder of DailyKos, Markos Moulitsas. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing, Mark?
I'm good.
I think we live in like the two bubbles in this country that are pretty quiet on the COVID front. I think it's the Bay Area and New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. I think those are the only places that people have been careful and mindful and respectful and considerate. And we're sort of the safe zones because the rest of the country is ugly out there. I hope everybody's staying safe.
All of my friends who were worried about me, and even a couple suggested I evacuate the epicenter when things first got going. Yeah. Now I'm asking if they can come stay with me.
Right.
In New York. So it's crazier and it's getting more crazy. But yeah, and you're in a good place for now. I know.
Yeah, I mean, LA Southern California is a disaster. They're making California look pretty bad. But where we're at here in the Bay Area, cases are rising, but it's from a very low base, and we've never opened up. Like, this place has been buttoned down tight before anybody else was, and it matters. It matters. Bars. I mean, what were bars doing opening? I mean, I still can't understand the idea that bars needed to open, and I think that's made a mess of the whole country.
Well, you know what's going on here in terms of the open sidewalk restaurants. Those numbers are down too. You know why? Have you heard?
No.
So New York, I think there are like 2 rats for every human being in New York.
Okay.
8 million people, 16 million rats. And the restaurants have been closed. So people are now, they tried to this experiment, open up the restaurants, but have people sit outside in the heat, little sidewalk cafes, very nice. But the rats are attacking the patrons because they've had no food.
Oh, no.
So people are like, I think I'll pass on going out to the restaurant to get something. So we still have social distancing. You see a restaurant, you might see 1 or 2 people sitting out there, and then the rats are, getting ready to pounce. They want, these rats here are bold anyway. So these restaurants are still not going to be wide open for a while because of these rats. So that's what we're dealing with.
I guess that's a silver lining.
Right.
Get where you can.
Right. So you early on advocated that Elizabeth Warren should be on the ticket, but you've changed your thinking on this.
Yes, and Mark, I'm a Warren partisan through and through. I think she would have been the best presidential candidate. I think she would be on the governance front, on the competence front. I don't think there's anybody else in the country that has set herself up as effectively as Warren. I mean, there's plan after plan after plan, and Biden's actually adopted a bunch of them. And before this is all said and done, I'm sure he'll adopt some more of them. So she, I think, has made the best case to either be president, or if something happens to Joe Biden now that he's our nominee, that she be second in line, undoubtedly. That said, I am, as I hope I've established over the years of we've been talking and my writing, I am a extreme pragmatist. And my goal in November is to win. And I'm not talking Joe Biden. Joe Biden's going to win. It don't matter who his VP nominee is. He's going to win at this point. I know, knock on wood, don't get complacent, blah, 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 right? But I know liberals even hate the idea, like, to say we're winning, right? But we're winning, and we're winning big time. And there's nothing in Donald Trump's personality or record to suggest he can do the kind of change that he needs to do to turn things around. But here's the thing. Joe Biden is winning right now by so much that suddenly we have Senate seats in states like Alaska and Montana and South Carolina and Kansas that are suddenly in play. And they are in play because, I mean, we'll still need ticket splitters in most of those states. And I don't expect Biden to win Alaska, Montana, South Carolina, or Texas, or Kansas. But if the Senate candidate has to, only needs to overcome 10% of the vote, to win the Senate seat, that's better than 20%, right? Trump won a lot of those states by 20, 25, 30 points last time. If he only wins them by 10, 15 points, we have a real shot down the ballot. So now what we're seeing right now is that Trump is flailing. The whole Republican Party is flailing. They don't know what to do with a white guy at the top of the ticket. And Mark, we talked about this during the primary. I was a Warren partisan. I also liked, Harris was my number 2, Kamala Harris. And Black voters decided to go with a white guy. And I was like, this is a historic opportunity to really break some ceilings and move history forward. And Black voters like, no, we're going to play this one safe. This is a little too important. We're going to play it safe. And whether I agreed with that, with the strategy, it has worked phenomenally well. They accomplished what they did. Donald Trump doesn't just not know how to attack Joe Biden. Oh, he's sleepy, he's creepy, he doesn't know what to say about Joe Biden. So now it's like he's cognitive decline, right? Like Donald Trump is gonna make it.
Hunter Biden didn't work.
Not only can he not make the case, but he doesn't have that visceral hatred for Joe Biden. Like he can't even bring himself the way he does when he talks about Pocahontas, right? Or he talks about any Black athletes, or when he talks about Kamala Harris, right? There's that visceral hatred that it's this, racism, sexism that really invigorates him. And I think by extension, it invigorates his supporters. So that said, Republicans, they're flailing. Donald Trump is he's morose. He doesn't know what to do. Why give him a boost in the arm by picking Pocahontas as Joe Biden's VP? I mean, this is the bottom line. And I don't think it would cost Joe Biden the presidency. But again, I'm not looking at the presidency anymore. I'm looking at how many Senate seats we can pick up, how many House seats we can pick up, how many state legislative chambers we can pick up. And by keeping Republicans as sort of demoralized as they are now is, I think, a big part of keeping those presidential margins pretty wide, which gives us our down ballot red state Democrats or red district Democrats a better chance to win. So now I look at who can we pick. I really do think at this point, a Black woman is right for the moment. There's a lot of great Black women to choose from. But again, I don't want to motivate Republicans and Donald Trump, right? So, but I still want the ideological compatibility. I think it needs to send a message to the base that Joe Biden is listening to the left. And so I look at California Representative Karen Bass, and I think she is freaking perfect because ideologically she's fantastic as a human being and as an intellect. She's all there. And Donald Trump doesn't know who she is. So he's not going to know what to do with it. And in the end, he's not going to do anything with it because he's just going to be flailing. So pick somebody that's amazing like Karen Bass, but that he doesn't know who it is. And the focus will remain on Donald Trump, not on the Democratic ticket. And right now we've seen that Joe Biden staying out of the public limelight has been the most amazing campaign strategy, perhaps in campaign history.
That's impolite. You can't keep saying that.
I'm going to keep saying it because it works. And they know it works. That's why you don't see him out and about. But yeah, why give Donald Trump a reason to get excited?
Yeah. Karen Bass would be difficult to attack. Is I think also what you're saying, because there's nothing that he can really say about her. Like there's nothing, he hasn't been able to land a punch on Joe Biden, really. You know, whereas unfortunately some of the punches he's been able to land on Elizabeth Warren, you know, as racist as they are, they're still landed punches. If this was a judge's scorecard,
it
so
excites the racist base, right? So
right. It incites,
yeah.
And you, other than Karen just being a black woman, that's the only incitement. But I mean, what's he going to say about her? What's he going to call her? They'd have to go and try to dig and come up with something. And there's really nothing there.
No, and we're talking, I mean, she's liberal, right? She's the ultra left. She's like the squad. I mean, they'll come up with some BS, but none of it's going to land.
The worst they'll do is California. Oh, she's
Hollywood.
California. You know.
Yeah, and there's only, 3 months left?
Yeah, so
I mean, they don't have enough time to build a case. And she doesn't have the baggage that maybe a Harris does or a Val Demings does by having worked in law enforcement. And again, in the moment, do we want to give Russian trolls and bots a chance to sort of incite more division in the Black community and just liberals in general, right?
Right. So since you're bringing this up, I think that's really important to think about. And of course, folks, what Markos is talking about is not inciting the base. I'll tell you what concerns me. I am hearing more chatter and more serious conversation about Susan Rice. And to your argument, I think that's very dangerous because you put Benghazi right back in front. I mean, that's what she's known for.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to people like, well, why would they even consider this? Like, I don't know. I mean, so again, Elizabeth has qualifications, she's able. Kamala has qualifications, she's able. Susan has qualifications, she's able.
Amazing.
But they can roll out of bed with the Benghazi argument. They don't have to try to figure that out. They'd have to pay and bring in, a whole nother consultant class to figure out what to do with Karen Bass.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be, she's like the squad. Yeah. I mean, that's going to be the basic argument. She's AOC, whatever, right? And it's just not a very exciting argument for them to make. And I bet you they just give up on it. They don't even try because it's just not worth their while to focus on that when really people are electing Joe Biden. And the other piece I think that has totally changed my thinking is that one of my big arguments for Elizabeth Warren was this idea that that Joe Biden had to unite the base, right? We didn't want to repeat the mistakes of 2016 by picking somebody that was good for governance but did nothing to actually mobilize and unite the party. And so at the beginning of the general election cycle, there was this argument that we need to make sure that Warren and Bernie Sanders supporters are excited about the ticket and back in the fold. I don't think anybody's worried about uniting the base right now. I think Donald Trump, all by his lonesome self, has united the base. And if Biden picks Elizabeth Warren, it would be the same argument that Hillary Clinton made in picking Tim Kaine. Ironically, the argument would be she'd be the best position to take over if something happened to me. It would be an argument over good governance, good government. And those are all great. And I would be excited if he picked Warren, don't get me wrong. But again, at this point, the question shouldn't be who's the best person to take over if something happens to Joe Biden. It's who's the best person that will help us win the most seats up and down the ballot.
Yeah, right. And to win some of those Senate seats.
Yeah.
But in some of your writing, Markos, you've kind of suggested that Trump isn't, whoever Joe Biden picks, Trump is not doing anything to help his own campaign at all. Like he's flailing, yes, but it's really down to the point of incompetence. And it's really, is it even a campaign?
No, well, the way I phrase it is he's not doing what he needs to do to win, which makes me wonder, does he even really want to win at this point? And look, he stumbled into everything that's considered success in his entire life, right? He was born to the right family, and he was gifted the right amount of money, and he got lawyers to threaten people who would call him on his failures, and bankruptcy law was his best friend, failure after failure. And he lost both debates, but in 2016, all 3 debates against Hillary Clinton, 2 debates, it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter because he just stumbled into up and up into success. And so finally he's at a place where his stumbling doesn't seem to be helping him. In fact, it's killed 140,000 people, and then another 30,000 are going to die this month. So he has done nothing. There's been nothing in his life history that has prepared him for course correction, to say, okay, I got to do something different. Like, this isn't working. And one of his biggest line items in his campaign budget is lawyers. He's suing CNN because they published a poll he doesn't like, and he's suing this journalist because he criticized something else he said. And that isn't the way you're going to win a presidential campaign. His lawyers aren't going to bail him out. And so does he really want to do what he needs to do? And some may argue that him saying, okay, wear a mask, what was that, Monday or Tuesday, him saying, wear a mask, begrudgingly, that's a course of correction. You think he's going to keep it up? He's not going to keep that up. He just can't possibly keep it up. And from one sentence, he's like, when he's reading his prepared remarks, he's like, things are going to get worse. And the second he's off his prepared remarks, like, this thing's going to go away. Like, he can't. I guess it was a monumental feat of success for them to get him to actually read a prepared statement. So I guess maybe there's that, but he can't hold it together. He just won't hold it together. And things are going to get worse for him, because here in September, Republicans are going to start breaking with him publicly. Like, they're not going to have a choice. I mean, they're falling everywhere. I mean, in our polling, it's Democrats have an outside chance of picking up a net 10 or 11 seats in the Senate. I mean, it's that bleak for the Republican Party right now. And outside chance, I'm not a prediction, outside chance. But the way trends are going, so these Republicans are going to have to break from Trump. And so you're going to have war inside the Republican Party, because, Trump's not going to take any of that lightly or sitting down. He's never has in his entire life. So he doesn't really seem to be doing what he needs to do to win. He's more concerned about what did somebody call it? That I liked, fan service. You know how TV shows do fan service, right? By slipping in little Easter eggs or whatever to make fans happy. Like, he's all about fan service. It's keeping his crazy base cheering, and which even now is hard for him because he can't have his big rallies anymore. And he's not thinking, how do I win back suburban white women? I mean, they're the biggest danger to not just him, but the entire Republican Party. And they're collapsing because of Donald Trump. And he can't. I mean, there's nothing in his history that says he'll course correct. And so I'm not particularly worried about him doing the things he needs to do to change course correction. That's why it's sort of like, okay, I'm not worried about the presidential election. The numbers are gaudy. Now, we've seen, some of these polls that show Biden up 12, 15 points. I don't buy that. And we definitely at Civiqs, we see it around an 8-9 point lead, which still is massive, but it's not as gaudy as 15. But that said, he's losing, and he's losing by a lot. It's not even close. And, we just found out a couple of days ago that his second biggest expenditures in ad money is Ohio. And Ohio is like the 8th or 9th Trump state that will flip to Biden. I mean, it's a state that Trump won by 9. I mean, if there's no scenario in the world where Biden wins Ohio and loses Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, it's just not going to happen. So it doesn't even make sense how he's spending his money. And it shows me an organization that's sort of flailing. Maybe Trump sees a poll in Ohio that he doesn't like, and he's freaking out when he should really be freaking out about the macro picture. And the reason he's even in danger of losing Ohio is because nationally he's down anywhere between, I guess, 8 and 15 points, depending on if you want to believe Civiqs or you want to believe ABC News. But that's why he's losing Ohio, and spending money in Ohio is not going to save his presidency. He can pull out a victory in Ohio. He's still going to lose by 300 plus electoral votes. I mean, that's the place he's in right now. And when you have states like Montana and Alaska are even right now, they're even. That shows you a map that's really sort of collapsing.
Could Ohio be, what's that old saying that a Republican has never won the White House without Ohio? Isn't that a thing that people have?
Yeah, but they used to say that a president had never won without winning Missouri. Missouri used to be the ultimate bellwether. Things changed. Yeah. And but I mean,
but he would know that. So he's heard that old saying.
right, maybe.
Stupid. Anyway, yes, Ohio, yes. Let's do it. How significant is it that John Kasich has endorsed Biden and now is actually going to be speaking at the convention? And how do you feel?
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it.
I mean, I think it's great as long as you don't have to actually give him any concessions. John Kasich was the last Republican governor of Ohio. He ran for president in 2016 and obviously lost to Donald Trump in the primary. I think he ran again this year, and obviously they didn't get anywhere. So he's been part of that Never Trumper group. But you know what he's good at is it's sort of he sends a signal to other Republicans that are wavering that it is safe to abandon Trump and the rest of the Republican Party at the moment. I would not give him a single concession. I don't trust the Lincoln Project. Those Republicans, Never Trumpers.
You don't trust them?
No, I don't trust them. I mean, they're Republican. They're helping us out this time, but they're collecting names of Democratic donors, and what are they going to do with that in 2-4 years? I mean, there's nothing stopping them from turning around and suddenly backing moderate Republicans using our donor list. Right. So it's great that they're doing it. We don't need them. But okay, great. I'll take their help as long as it's Republican funding it. That would be great. I don't think any Democrats or liberals should be sending them a dime. But so Kasich sort of sent that message that it's safe. That Biden may be talking about this crazy Trump. Biden is beholden to the liberals. That's his new one, I guess. That the squad is going to control Joe Biden. And then they have boring old John Kasich, Republican governor, come out and say, nah, Biden is better. Sends a signal. And all throughout the Trump presidency, his support amongst Republicans has been sky high. Now, there's been a phenomenon like suburban white women that have left the Republican Party and called themselves independents. And so there is erosion in that Republican base. But if you look at Republican polling, ask a Republican, do you support Trump? They say yes. Because if you don't, you sort of left the party. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it hides the suburban white women defections. But what we're seeing now in Civiqs polling is that Trump he was at 92 supporting 6% of Republicans disapproving of Trump after impeachment, 92-6. And when I looked yesterday, I haven't looked this morning, but when I looked yesterday, it was down to 89 approve and 10% disapprove or 11% disapprove. And it doesn't seem like a lot, right? Oh, from 92 to 89. But we're talking about these defections in states that Trump is, Trump may win South Carolina by 8 to 10 points. He won it by, I think, 20 points, 15, 20 points in 2016. I think Biden gets it down to about 5 to 10 points this time. For Jamie Harrison to win, he needs to get some of those potential Trump voters or just to get Republicans, it's a Republican state, to not vote for Trump, or if they vote for Trump, to vote for him instead of Lindsey Graham, right? So any erosion from that Republican base, you may say it's only 3 points. Well, that's 3 points easier for Jamie Harrison. He doesn't need to overcome 8 points. He needs to overcome 5 points. And yes, it's still hard, but it's easier. And we're seeing it's being driven almost entirely by the coronavirus pandemic response. And that's why Donald Trump suddenly is like, it's patriotic to wear masks after 140,000 people have died because I said it was anti-freedom to wear masks, right? I mean, this is their panic now. They're seeing this, Republicans are screaming at him that he needs to do things differently. Of course, he goes up there without a mask. And he could have done theater. He could have walked in with a mask and then taken it off, you know, and then put it back on. Like, there's things he could have done to like impress, but he won't do those things because he's Donald Trump. But this is real. It's happening. There's erosion in Republicans. And so for a Kasich to come up, and there's supposedly there's more. There's 2 or 3 more that they're saying high-profile Republican defections. And if they want to get George Bush up there, get George Bush up there. I'd be like, you know, I'm pragmatic. Don't give him concessions. But if he wants to say, you know what, Joe Biden and the Democrats are better this election than Donald Trump and the Republicans that enabled them, then I'll take it.
I think they got George Will the other night too.
Yeah, well, George Will,
who said he's never voted for a Democrat.
Yeah, no, he's been saying vote against Republicans all the way down the ballot. I mean, he went out and said, like, everybody who has enabled him, it's a rotten party, it's broken, and needs to be rebuilt.
I think he just officially announced that he's going to vote for Biden, though.
Wow.
Which is significant. Maybe maybe the flailing. What if the flailing isn't flailing? He knows how he won before, so that might be a signal to us not to let our guard down. In other words, he knows how he's going to win this time. He got help before. Maybe he knows that help is on its way again. And by help, I mean from Russia. Because you're right. So, looking at him, it's like, what are you doing? This is not even campaign 101, what you're doing. It's just, you know, it's
right. Every morning he shoots himself in the face.
Yeah.
How can I lose some more votes today? And his numbers are eroding. And again, it's 1 point every month, right? But if he's down another 2-3 points, again, this makes South Carolina a real chance to get Texas and those Senate seats in those states. That's what I want to keep impressing. It's not about Joe Biden winning anymore. I don't think we have to worry about Joe Biden winning. Now, one of the big things he had for help, that's a really good idea. It's just different this time. In 2016, the election machinery in every single one of the 7 core battleground states were run by Republicans. That's Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. There are more battleground states now, but those are the 7 that will decide the election. If Biden wins Iowa, or if he wins Ohio or Iowa, then, you know, Biden's already won. He doesn't need those states. If Trump wins Minnesota or Nevada, Trump's already won because of those 7 states, right? So in 2016, the election machinery in all 7 of those states were controlled by Republicans, and they used it to marginalize and what's the word? Suppress our vote.
That's right.
Today, Democrats control the election machinery in 5 of those 7 states. The only 2 that Republicans keep in control are Florida and Georgia. And Georgia's like number 7 in that list. Georgia's going to be the last of those 7 states to flip Joe Biden. So, and they used that election machinery in Georgia, remember, to suppress the vote and keep Stacey Abrams from winning the governorship 2 years ago. So it's powerful. We can't underestimate it. But they can no longer do that in Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, or North Carolina. Those election machineries. And we just found out Tuesday that in Charlottesville, they're going to open up all the stadiums, all the big stadiums. We're talking the arenas for early voting. None of this like little, one spot early voting in the middle somewhere. Like, they're going to make the whole stadium one massive early voting operation. People can go in and out easily. And in Wisconsin, this is a big one. In Wisconsin, Democrats tried to pass a law that would have sent a ballot to every registered voter. And the Republican legislature said no, they blocked it. So what happened is that now the 2 biggest Democratic counties, Milwaukee and Dane, and I think also the 3rd biggest Democratic county, they are going to mail those mail ballots automatically in their county. And all these Republican counties are not. because they're too stupid to not first to make it statewide, and two, Donald Trump's railing against mail voting. So the number of people, Republicans who say they're going to vote by mail, is way down because now suddenly it's, Donald Trump, it's unpatriotic. And the Republican legislature can't do anything about it because we have the Secretary of State office and we have the governor in Wisconsin. So these races that we've been fighting all throughout the decade, they matter. And that's what we kept saying to people. Everybody wants to obsess about the presidential, and to the credit of the progressive movement, we have been more focused on down ballot. But, Mark, you and I, we used to have these conversations 10 years ago, tearing our hair out because people would be obsessed with the presidential and not realize that those governorships and Secretary of State and Attorney General races actually mattered for presidential purposes. And now we control the voting machinery and the voting process, and they cannot suppress our votes. So what can they do? Russia can try to, divide us in social media. I guess they can try to do that. Right. But they can't use the machinery of the elections outside of Florida and Georgia to suppress it. And we don't need Florida and Georgia to win the election. Those other 5 states do it well. And for the record, in polling, both public polling and in our own internal civics polling, Joe Biden is winning all 7 of those core battleground states, and by enough, 2-3 points. I think Georgia's the closest we have it, and that's a 2-point Biden lead, 48-46.
You mentioned the Senate too, but we are looking at even more House pickups, aren't we? Yeah,
this is crazy because we won 42 seats in 2018. And so usually when you have a big wave year like that, right, you win a lot of marginal districts that you have no business winning. We won some districts that Trump won by 10 points.
Right.
And so you sort of expect that there would be some contraction. And so usually after a year like this, the Democrats would be on defense mode. Like, we're not going to play offense. We're just going to hunker down and defend what we have. Particularly since we have reapportionment coming up. And so the House districts, we still have them in 2000. Will we have them in 2012? Actually, I'm not sure because everything's being delayed by the coronavirus, the pandemic and stuff. So I'm not sure if we'll have a new map in 2012. I would assume so. So 2022, sorry. But that said, what we're finding is because the climate is so crappy and the Democratic gains in the suburbs are continuing. We're not done picking up new votes in the suburbs. That there's a good chance that we could pick up maybe another 10 seats this year, pick up 10 seats. Our incumbents are almost all safe. And we're seeing polls out of districts that, again, should not be competitive and are competitive. So again, this is where it's key. We have some of these, Montana's a big one, Alaska. Those House seats are both very single district states, very competitive because the presidential election is competitive, right? I mean, if Biden and Trump are tied, then those House candidates don't need a lot to pick up. But we're seeing places like Kansas and Texas and Missouri and Ohio. We're seeing places where we shouldn't really be competitive, but because Trump is running so poorly, that it's suppressing that Republican vote throughout the entire state. And again, this goes back to my original point. This is why I'm now on team pick a VP that does nothing. Because we're in a good place right now. We don't want to give Republicans a reason to get motivated and excited.
There's the coast, folks. Civics with a Q. Markos Moulitsas, always a pleasure. So this is big news, folks. And Elizabeth Warren, partisan, advocating for the VP choice to be Karen Bass. Let us know your thoughts and comments too, folks. Thank you, buddy, as always.
Such a pleasure. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you, man.
God, you are our refuge. Send our ancestors to guard our doors. Cast out this virus from our communities and our bodies. Heal, bless, and protect everyone listening and their loved ones. Thank you for listening to Make It Plain and Get Woke. Remember to listen, like, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcasts. If all minds are clear, it has been made plain.